The morning mist hung low over the quiet lake, creating a soft veil between the water and the distant mountains. Thomas walked slowly along the worn path, his weathered boots making gentle sounds against the smooth stones. He carried a large wicker basket on his back, its weight familiar and comforting after years of the same routine. At 62 years old, Thomas had spent most of his life as a successful businessman in the city. His days had been filled with meetings, deadlines, and the constant buzz of a phone that never seemed to stop ringing. His mind had always been busy, jumping from one problem to the next, planning 3 steps ahead, worrying about outcomes he couldn't control, but that life felt like a distant memory now. 3 years ago, after a minor heart attack that served as a wake-up call, Thomas had made the difficult decision to leave it all behind. He sold his company, said goodbye to his city apartment, and moved to this small cabin by the lake. Here, in the quiet mountains, he hoped to find the peace that had eluded him for so many years. The transition hadn't been easy. For months, Thomas found himself restless and anxious. His mind, trained by decades of constant activity, struggled to adapt to the slower pace of mountain life. Even simple tasks felt overwhelming when his thoughts kept racing back to spreadsheets and board meetings that no longer existed. This morning, like every morning for the past year, Thomas was making his way to the lake's edge to collect smooth stones. It had started as a simple hobby, something to keep his hands busy while his mind learned to be still. But over time, it had become something much more meaningful. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows through the tall pine trees that surrounded the lake. Thomas reached his favorite spot, a small clearing where the water was shallow and crystal clear. The stones here had been polished by countless years of gentle waves, each one unique in its shape and color. He set down his basket and rolled up his sleeves, then waded into the cool water. The sensation was always the same, refreshing and grounding. Thomas bent down and picked up the first stone, feeling its smooth surface against his palm. As he had learned to do, he focused entirely on that single stone, its weight, its texture, the way the morning light played across its surface. For the first few months of this routine, Thomas's mind had been anything but empty. While his hands worked, his thoughts would wander to old problems, future concerns, and endless mental chatter. He would find himself thinking about his former employees, wondering if he had made the right decision to retire, or worrying about his health and finances. But gradually, something had begun to change. The repetitive nature of selecting stones, feeling their surfaces, and carefully placing them in his basket had a meditative quality that slowly quieted his restless mind. Each stone required his full attention. Was it the right shape? Did it feel good in his hand? Would it fit well with the others he had chosen? This morning, as Thomas continued his work, he noticed something different. A family of ducks glided across the lake, their movements creating gentle ripples that caught the sunlight. Normally, he might have barely noticed them, his attention focused on the task at hand. But today, he found himself pausing to watch their graceful journey across the water. As he stood there, waist deep in the lake, with a smooth stone in his hand, Thomas realized that his mind felt empty. Not in a vacant or troubling way, but in a peaceful, spacious way. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about anything in particular. He was simply present, aware of the cool water around his legs, the gentle breeze on his face, and the quiet sounds of the lake waking up to the day. A smile spread across his weathered face as he understood what had been happening during all these months of stone collecting. Without realizing it, he had been learning to let go of the constant mental chatter that had dominated his life for so long. Each stone he picked up had been like a meditation, requiring him to be fully present in the moment. Thomas continued gathering stones, but now with a deeper appreciation for what he was really doing. This wasn't just about collecting beautiful objects, it was about creating space in his mind, clearing away the clutter of unnecessary thoughts and worries that had weighed him down for decades. As his basket filled with carefully chosen stones, Thomas reflected on how different he felt from the man who had first arrived at this lake 3 years ago. That person had been driven by anxiety and the need to always be doing something productive. He had measured his worth by his achievements and had rarely allowed himself to simply be still. Now, standing in the peaceful water with his mind finally quiet, Thomas understood that emptiness wasn't something to be feared. It was a gift, a space where peace could flourish, where the simple beauty of a morning could be fully appreciated, where the sound of water lapping against stones could be more valuable than any business deal he had ever made. The sun was higher now, warming his back as he made his final selections. Each stone felt perfect in its own way, and Thomas realized that his judgment had improved over the months. He no longer second-guessed his choices or worried about finding the perfect stone. His mind was clear enough to trust his instincts and appreciate whatever the lake offered him as he waded back to shore. His basket full of smooth treasures, Thomas felt a deep sense of contentment. The stones would join the hundreds of others he had collected over the past year, arranged carefully around his cabin and garden. But their real value wasn't decorative. They were reminders of the moments when his mind had found peace, when the endless stream of thoughts had finally quieted. Back at his cabin, Thomas emptied his basket and arranged the new stones with the others. Each one carried the memory of a peaceful moment, a small victory in his journey toward mental stillness. He made himself a cup of tea and sat on his porch, looking out at the lake that had become his teacher. The old businessman inside him might have asked what he had accomplished that morning, what measurable progress he had made. But the man he was becoming understood that the greatest achievement was often the absence of achievement, the simple ability to exist peacefully in the present moment, with a mind as clear and calm as the lake itself. As afternoon settled over the mountains, Thomas closed his eyes and listened to the gentle sounds around him. His mind, once so full of noise and worry, now felt spacious and serene. He had learned that to empty your mind wasn't to lose something valuable. It was to make room for everything that truly mattered. The lake continued its eternal rhythm, waves softly touching the shore, where countless smooth stones waited patiently to teach their lessons of peace.